Picture this. It's the late 1970s. You walk into a dealership, and the salesman says one word, turbo, and your first reaction isn't excitement, it's fear. Because up to that point, turbo meant one thing, a bomb under your hood that would either blow your doors off or blow itself apart within a year. Turbo engines had a reputation. Fast, yes. Thrilling, yes. But reliable, never. That word didn't exist in the same sentence as turbocharger. Not until a small, boxy, almost apologetically plain car rolled out of a factory in Sweden and quietly rewrote the rules. This is the story of the Saab 99 Turbo, the car that made forced induction something you could actually trust. And it's also the story of what came right after it, the car that took that trust and turned it into a legend, and then watched that legend get slowly taken apart by people who never understood what made it special in the first place. Stay with me, because the part nobody talks about isn't the horsepower. It's what was hiding underneath it, the quiet engineering decisions nobody put on a brochure, but that made all the difference on the road. Let's go back further, because you need to understand what turbo actually meant before Saab got involved. In 1962, General Motors tried it first. The Oldsmobile Jetfire and the Chevrolet Corvair Monza both came out with turbocharged engines. On paper, groundbreaking. In the real world, a disaster. Owners dealt with overheating, blown seals, and engines that simply gave up. Within a couple of years, both cars quietly dropped the turbo option. The message to the industry was clear. Forced induction was a novelty, not a solution. A decade later, BMW and Porsche gave it another shot. The BMW 2002 Turbo in 1973 and the Porsche 911 Turbo in 1975. These were serious, exciting machines, but they were built for drivers who already knew how to handle sudden, violent bursts of power. Turbo lag would hit you out of nowhere, and if you weren't ready for it, the car would bite back. These weren't cars for the average 50-year-old commuter driving to the office every morning. They were toys for the brave and warnings for everyone else. For anyone who never lived through it, here's what that actually meant behind the wheel. You'd press the accelerator, and for a moment, nothing would happen. The turbo needed time to spin up before it could force extra air into the engine. Then, suddenly, without warning, all that delayed power would arrive at once. In a corner, on a wet road, or in the hands of someone who wasn't paying attention, that sudden punch could snap the back end loose before you even understood what was happening. That delay, and that violent payoff, is what the industry called turbo lag. It's also exactly why so many drivers, and so many manufacturers, quietly gave up on the whole idea. Now here's where it gets interesting. Saab wasn't a performance brand. The company started life in 1937 as an aircraft manufacturer, building fighter planes for the Swedish military. It only turned to cars after the Second World War, and that engineering culture never really left. Saab was known for safety, for strange but brilliant solutions, and for a stubborn kind of practicality that didn't care what other manufacturers were doing. But Saab had something the others didn't: decades of experience turbocharging truck engines through its sister company, Saab Scania. That experience mattered more than anyone realized at the time. Instead of chasing outright power, Saab's engineers picked a small Garrett T3 turbocharger, one that would spool up quickly even at low engine speed, paired with Bosch mechanical fuel injection. They also fitted something almost nobody else was using on a road car at the time, a wastegate, to keep boost pressure under control instead of letting it climb unchecked. The goal wasn't to build the fastest car on the road. The goal was to build a turbo engine that behaved itself. One that a regular driver, someone who just wanted to get to work without drama, could actually live with every single day. That car debuted at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1977 and went on sale as a 1978 model, the Saab 99 Turbo. It made 145 horsepower in European trim, 135 in the American version. That might sound modest today. But at the time, a BMW 320i was putting out just 110 horsepower. The Saab cost around $10,000, not cheap, but right in line with its German rivals. And unlike those rivals, It didn't feel like it was trying to kill you. It felt composed, confident, almost boring, in the best possible way, right up until you put your foot down and the boost came in smooth and strong. And Saab sweated the details in a way that told you this wasn't a rushed cash grab. The turbo rode on distinctive 15-inch alloy wheels, nicknamed Inca wheels, styled to look like the spinning blades of a compressor. Inside, there was a dash-mounted boost gauge, so the driver could actually watch the turbo doing its work instead of just guessing. And despite being the sportiest model in the range, Saab still gave it front and rear crumple zones, because even while chasing performance, safety never left the conversation. That combination, speed with restraint, is what separated Saab from nearly everyone else experimenting with turbos at the time. Saab didn't just want people to believe this, they wanted to prove it, so they set up something remarkable at an airstrip in Mantorp, Sweden. Two real rally legends, Stig Blomqvist and Per Eklund, were brought in to push a black 99 turbo against 8 other cars, a Porsche 924, an Alfa Romeo Alfetta, a BMW 528, a Mercedes 280, even a Dodge Monaco. This wasn't a rigged marketing stunt with no stakes. These were real, respected performance cars from real competitors, and everyone watching expected one of the German or Italian names to walk away with it. Instead, the modest little Swedish hatchback everyone underestimated came out on top. That's not a rumor. That's not marketing spin. That actually happened, on camera, in front of witnesses, and it's the kind of moment that turns a car from a curiosity into a legitimate contender. It wasn't just a stunt, either. Saab's turbo engineering carried over into motorsport as well, and the 99 and 900 earned real respect on rally stages across Europe through the years that followed. Further proof that the reliability Saab had engineered into these cars wasn't just a marketing claim. It held up under the harshest conditions a car could face. Before we go further, if you're finding this as fascinating as I am, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This channel exists to dig up the real stories behind machines that shaped the world we grew up in. No fluff, no guesswork, just the facts that actually happened. Drop a comment below and tell me what stood out to you so far. And if you know someone who'd appreciate a good story about old iron done right, share this with them. Now, back to it, because the numbers that came next are the real proof. Within just a few years, the word turbo went from something drivers feared to something marketers couldn't stop using. It ended up stamped on everything from hot hatchbacks to aftershave and shaving foam, a badge of excitement slapped on products that had nothing to do with cars at all. But Saab had gotten there first, and gotten there for the right reasons. The results speak for themselves. In the United Kingdom alone, sales jumped from 4,000 cars in 1977 to 9,000 in 1979. By July of 1980, roughly 30,000 turbocharged 99s and their successor had already been built and sold. Saab had done something almost nobody thought was possible. It had taken a technology associated with unreliability and turned it into a selling point. And this wasn't just good news for car enthusiasts, it genuinely rescued the company. Before the turbo, Saab's lineup was aging, dealer morale was low, and the outlook for the business itself was shaky at best. Industry press at the time openly described Saab's prospects as far from promising. The turbo changed that story almost overnight. It gave the brand a genuine reason to walk into a showroom, and it gave Saab the momentum it needed to keep building cars for another 2 decades. But the 99 Turbo was never meant to be the final form. It was a proof of concept. In 1978, Saab introduced its replacement, the Saab 900, and by 1979, the turbo version arrived. The 900 was essentially an evolution of the 99's platform, stretched out to meet American crash regulations. With a longer nose that also happened to free up much-needed space under the hood for that turbocharger. Underneath, the engineering stayed wonderfully strange. The engine sat canted over at a 45-degree angle, mounted longitudinally even though the car was front-wheel drive, with power sent backward through a chain to a gearbox tucked underneath the engine itself. It sounds needlessly complicated, and in a way it was, but it gave the car near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, something you'd expect from a sports car, not a family sedan. Up front, a double wishbone suspension setup gave the 900 a level of handling and road feel that punched well above its price bracket, and the 900 wasn't a one-trick pony either. Over its production run, it was offered in 2-door and 4-door sedan form, 3-door and 5-door hatchbacks, and starting in 1986, a proper cabriolet. 5 different body styles built around the same honest engineering. This is where the real transformation begins. Here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it's the actual secret to why this car became legendary, instead of just another footnote in automotive history. In 1982, a Saab engineer named Per Gilbrand introduced something called Automatic Performance Control, APC for short. On the surface, it sounds like a boring technical footnote. It wasn't. This system used a knock sensor to constantly monitor the engine for early signs of detonation, the exact thing that destroyed those early Oldsmobile and Corvair turbo engines back in the 60s. If the system detected knock, it would automatically reduce boost pressure in real time, protecting the engine before any damage occurred. Think of it like a bodyguard riding along on every single drive, one that never sleeps, never gets distracted, and steps in a split second before something goes wrong, then quietly steps back like nothing happened. You'd never know it was there. That's exactly the point. What that meant in practice was staggering. For the first time, a turbocharged car could run on regular pump, gasoline of varying quality, in different countries, under different conditions, without the driver ever needing to think about it. The system did the thinking. It was quietly saving the engine from the driver's own right foot, thousands of times a day, without anyone ever noticing. That's the real innovation. Not the horsepower number on the brochure. The invisible system working behind the scenes to keep an ordinary person from destroying an extraordinary engine. And Saab kept refining the hardware to match. The early Garrett T3 turbochargers were oil-cooled, which worked, but wasn't perfect. Between 1988 and 1990, Saab moved to a water-cooled version of the same T3 unit for better durability. Then, starting in 1990 for the SPG models sold in America, and across the board for every American turbo, from 1991 onward, Saab switched to a Mitsubishi turbocharger. It was smaller, spooled up faster, and finally killed off the last traces of that dreaded turbo lag that had scared people away from forced induction in the first place. The car that once needed convincing was now simply better than the alternatives, full stop. There's a nice detail buried in that badge too. Starting with the 1984 model year, Saab's highest performance trim carried the name Aero, a direct nod back to the company's roots as an aircraft builder. In the United States, that same top trim was badged SPG instead, but underneath, it was the same idea, Saab reaching back into its own history every time it wanted to signal that a car meant business. Power kept climbing too, but always with that same disciplined philosophy behind it. The 16-valve engines pushed output up to around 160 horsepower. The limited-run SPG models, short for Special Performance Group, came with revised APC modules and a sharper focus on handling, and reached 175 horsepower. Dealer-fitted performance APC units pushed some cars as high as 185 horsepower, and in 1993, Saab built its send-off, the commemorative edition 900 Turbo. 185 horsepower, tan leather, a wood dash, a lower and stiffer suspension, only 325 were ever made. It was the final, purest expression of everything the 900 had become, and then, almost immediately after, everything changed. And here's a number that puts the whole story in perspective. By the time the classic 900 finally ended production, over 900,000 of them had rolled off the line. For a small, independent Swedish company that most of the world still thought of as a niche, slightly eccentric brand, that's an extraordinary achievement. The 900 wasn't just a cult favorite among enthusiasts. It became the best-selling car Saab had ever built, and remains the model most people picture the moment you say the name Saab out loud. Because here's the part that stings a little. Around this same time, General Motors took control of Saab. The next generation of the 900, launched right after, was built on a shared platform with an Opel model. Some longtime owners will tell you straight to your face that it simply wasn't the same car anymore. The quirky, stubborn, deeply Swedish engineering philosophy that built the 99 Turbo and perfected the 900 started getting diluted by corporate boardroom decisions made thousands of miles away. It's a familiar story in the car world. A small, brilliant company does something nobody else could do, gets noticed by a giant, and then slowly loses the very thing that made it special in the first place. Saab would eventually collapse entirely, but that's a story for another day. What matters here is that the classic 900, the one built through 1993, was the last time the world saw the pure, uncompromised version of what Saab's engineers had built. And here's something worth knowing if any of this has you thinking about tracking one down today. These cars aren't forgotten, they're appreciating. Clean, low mileage, 999 turbos have been showing up at auction, with bidding racing well past $30,000 for the best examples. But if you ever go looking for one, go in with your eyes open. Specialists will tell you the APC control unit itself can fail and cause rough running, head gaskets can go on neglected engines, and the exhaust manifold is prone to cracking over time. None of that erases what made the car special. If anything, it proves the point. This was a genuinely engineered machine, built by people who cared, not a disposable performance toy. It rewards an owner who respects it, the same way it always did. So what's the real lesson here? It's not about horsepower numbers, or 0 to 60 times, or who won a staged race on an airstrip in Sweden decades ago. It's about what actually lasts. The 99 Turbo didn't win by being the fastest thing on the road. It won by being the first turbo car you could trust with your life, your family, your daily commute, without holding your breath every time you started the engine. And the 900 didn't become a legend because of a spec sheet. It became a legend because it took that trust and built a genuine character around it, something people fell in love with, something they still restore and cherish decades later, long after flashier, faster cars from that same era have been forgotten and scrapped. That's the difference between a car that's fast and a car that's loved. Speed fades, trust doesn't. And if there's one thing this story should leave you with, it's this. The machines that actually earn a place in history are rarely the loudest ones in the room. They're the ones that quietly do the hard, unglamorous work of being reliable, day after day, year after year, until one day you look up and realize you're driving a legend. Think about how many so-called revolutionary cars from that same decade have simply vanished, forgotten in scrapyards, replaced by something flashier within a couple of years. The Saab didn't need to shout to be remembered. It just needed to keep starting every single morning, keep getting its driver home safely, and keep doing it for decades without complaint. In a world that constantly chases the next big number, there's something almost defiant about a car that earned its reputation the slow, honest way. If this story took you back, or taught you something about a car you thought you already knew, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment and tell me what part of this stuck with you the most, the Mantorp airstrip race, the APC system, or the ending with GM. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and if you've got a friend who'd appreciate a story like this one, send it their way. I'll see you in the next one.